Welcome to this podcast. I'm your host, Zach Schwartz, and today we are having another Oscar movie review series. We're running out of movies here, so we need some suggestions to be sent in, please, by the fans as the quarantine continues to drag on and onward. But today we're doing Joker, a very controversial movie, but its box office was not. How about that transition? It was the first R-rated movie to make $1 billion on a $55 to $70 million budget, and lead actor Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker won Best Actor at the Oscars, and it was also won the Best Original Score. I can't pronounce the score guy's name, but look it up. It was very good. We'll talk about it. In the movie, directed by Todd Phillips, and of course loosely based on the Killing Joke and of the DC Comics universe in the DC Extended Universe of movies. So joining me today to break that all down is Oscar Cordero, commonly referred to as Buddy. Buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Stuck inside watching a ton of movies.
It's good. That's good. Are you ready with the hot takes for this one? Because this movie got hot in the public consciousness, both because of its monetary success and also because of its, I guess, quote unquote message. So.
I think it was, it's like the first movie just to go that big with its, how dark it is and how psychological this movie was, especially for DC to make.
Yeah, I was surprised, it being the first R-rated movie to make $1 billion that Deadpool did it. It felt like Deadpool was like a ubiquitous part of the culture for years there, and I was surprised that didn't hit $1 billion in the box office.
Yeah, especially with the comedy, because I feel like comedy has movies, but I don't know. They did a pretty good job with this one, especially with the low budget compared to all their other movies.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it made 10, 11 times over its budget, so it's a pretty big success for Warner Brothers there. So, first thing, So the first thing I want to ask, just overall, taking out all the comic book stuff and other things with this movie, was it a good movie?
If I had never heard of DC before, and this was like the first time I was sitting down and, watching the hearing of the Joker, I would still put it in my, top 10 favorite movies of all time.
Wow. All time.
The movie was just so different to any other movie I feel like I've ever seen, and it was just so well done.
Yeah, and it's always, I think it's also hard to just classify this as another comic book movie as well. Obviously, the Joker is very famous in comics. He's the ultimate villain, whatever you want to say. But like this, when you watch this in the theater, this does not feel like a comic book movie. There's no giant world-ending consequences or massive CGI battle between a superhero and a villain that have the exact same powers, and the hero wins because he's a better guy, or better girl. We're all about equality here at the assist. But like that, none of that was present. I mean, there was obviously very ideological stuff going on throughout the movie about the Joker, and it's also when you pick a villain as your lead role, as the star of your movie per se, it's obviously going to look very different than than the usual type of hero story.
Yeah, and I think they did a really good job with that, especially, DC hasn't been making, I wouldn't say the best movies of all time. They had a couple flops here and there, but I think they did a good job taking about a villain or, the backstory of it. So I think they did a really good job taking that into account and making it what it was.
Yeah, I agree, because the Joker is really interesting too in the comics because he doesn't have an origin, right? So people I know before, the super hardcore comic book fans, the nerds, shall we dare call them out? uh, they were opposed to the Joker getting a name and getting a backstory, which, I mean, I don't know how you felt about that before the movie, but I wasn't really leaning either way. I'm like, it's also just a person. It's a character. Like, it's all characters have a backstory.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to us, because we're both big Marvel people, it would be like, I guess, Thanos getting his own movie in a way, like his own branch off, you know?
Yeah. You could also argue that Infinity
But
War
I think,
was his movie.
yeah, but you're right. You're right. They did do that, but I know I'm not really a big comic book person, so I couldn't say, making a name for a villain like that and giving him his own movie was the right thing to do. But I think in the end, from what I've heard, all the comic book people were really, really pleased with the way that the Joker turned out.
Yeah, I agree completely. Something I wanted to ask you too. I don't think we'll dive into too much of the specific plot points, and we can talk about favorite scenes and such like that later on. Did you get everything going on in the movie the first time? And what I mean is, there's some scenes later on with the wonderful Zazie Beetz playing kind of a, like, I guess a romance partner for Joaquin's character, who is named Arthur Fleck in the movie. And I was whiffing a little bit on the fact that it was an illusion. And I don't know if I was just missing it, if I wasn't exactly tuned in, but did you hit all those points that this was a much more mentally psychotic movie than just, here it is, here's what's happening kind of thing, like you really had to think about it? Did you get all of that on the first try?
Well, I'm not gonna lie, no, because the first time you watch it, you're really focused on like him, and with all going on with like his mom and him trying to figure out who his father is. It's really easy to just miss the little love story type thing they tried to throw in there with his head. But I think after watching the second time, it definitely became way more clear, because the whole thing where he is going to her apartment and then he's sitting there and then she's just like, what are you doing in here? It's just, it's really easy to miss a scene like that. But I think it definitely added to the movie, having her and him, his whole falling in love with her really helped boost the movie.
Yeah, I agree, because I think we're used to kind of these type of stories, right? When the villain gets their backstory, even in a hero's movie, where it's like they try their best, they fail a little bit, whatever, and then they find someone else, they find another character, and that character will eventually let them down, and that's where they become evil or become a villain or whatever. So when you're watching it, you just feel like that's the arc that's happening. It's like, all right, so the Joker becomes a Joker because he has some mental issues, his mom sucks, and a girlfriend left him. Like, that's what we're gonna do. But then you're right. Like, they slammed the door shut in that case, because they end that whole sequence with her yelling at him, like, "What are you doing here?" And it just turned out it was all part of his mental mind. And so that kind of lends to the fact that the Joker is just more of just always been mentally delusioned, rather than things like the world specifically having things happen to him to create him. That makes sense.
Yeah, he just, especially with her, she did. I think I don't know the actress's name exactly. What is it? You just said it, I think.
Zazie Beetz. I don't know if I'm saying that properly. She's also in Deadpool, which is interesting. She's in Deadpool too, I believe, and probably other things.
Oh, Zazie Beetz, yeah. I think she did a really, really good job, playing her character, and I think the love story aspect added to the psychological part of the movie, because all of us have that psychological thing with love, and they try to make it more relatable, adding that. So I think they did a good job.
Yeah, especially, I mean, part of the whole controversy I keep referring to about this movie was its portrayal of mental illness and such like that. Did you take any issue with that or anything like that? Or did you think, I mean, it didn't feel like to me it was really a problem. I mean, it's just, it was just a devolution, I don't know. de-evolving of a character into badness overall, and part of that was his own psychological stuff.
Yeah, I mean, coming from us two people that I wouldn't say have like too serious of psychological problems. I don't think the mental illness was that big of an issue in this movie. I mean, I don't think it really, put down any mental illnesses or downplayed any of them, trying to, make them seem not as bad as they are. I don't really know much of the controversy, around the whole mental illness problem in the movie.
Yeah, and I mean, I think too, what the writers and directors were smart, and producers and stuff with this movie, were that they didn't blame it solely on the illness and stuff like that. They did show how he was treated like crap at work, how his mom was terrible, and the scenes with him trying to figure out who his dad was, and the Thomas Wayne scenes there, the father of Bruce Wayne, Batman, as well, showed that it wasn't just him, and just the fact that if you're born with a mental illness or such like that, you'll become an evil murderer. But that it's just there's a lot of factors. Obviously, if you're going to create the biggest villain of all time, there's going to be a lot of different things that go into it. So I feel like those people that were just criticizing the movie and slamming the movie on that were wrong in that sense. And I also feel like part of this movie too, like you said, it's completely different. And I think probably why it finds a place in your top 10 is that it's just different. Like it's you don't see this portrayal. And to me, I would rather have directors and actors and stuff pushing the boundary a little bit on this stuff, because movies are supposed to be a reflection of our culture, of our values and stuff like that. And sometimes, I mean, you've seen it in culture, unfortunately, is that culture isn't the best thing in the world. It's ugly. It's not great. And you even see that, I think, talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood too, how Margot Robbie's character is intentionally sidelined because that's how it was in the 60s and 70s. That's how it was. And it's sometimes hard to come to grips with that, but that's just what it is. Our culture's not perfect. Very, very clearly it's not, as we're discussing, things, happening again with the police and such. So it's unfortunate, but I just think comedy, music, movies. Which I know you're a giant music guy too, which is we got to do something on the pod with that as well. But I feel like these type of elements need to push the boundary, because they should reflect what we're going through now in regards to culture and overall society.
Yeah, I think in these past like 2-3 years with mental health, and you always see those Instagram stories and all those posts, mental health awareness. I think this movie was perfectly timed, I guess you could say. I think it really brought to light because what the Joker went through in the movie, those are real things that people go through. They don't react the same, but people trying to figure out who their father is, their mother not treating them the best, things like that, or getting treated, poorly at work. Those are real life things. So I think the movie was just perfectly timed, especially with all the attention mental health has been getting recently.
Well, especially when he goes to become a comedian, right? That's what he wants to do, because he has this, I guess, a tick. I don't know if that's the proper word to say it, but that he laughs at uncontrollably at random times, right? I don't know if you call it a tick or what. So he decides to become a comedian along with that, and he struggles, of course. Now, I don't know how much you've listened to or how much are you into comedy, stand up?
I'm not a big stand up comedy guy, but I do watch some of the classic guys. Dave Chappelle. I've seen his Netflix specials, and Kevin Hart every time he drops one. But I don't really go into like the underground people. I mean, I've seen, the classic guys.
Chappelle's the best. But everyone needs to check out Dave Chappelle. But also I think, a thing that's very common, in the comedy, world. And I think the movie nailed on this as well, is that, it's really tough to start out. Like, everyone in comedy is bad when they start, and eventually you sharpen your skills and get better. When the movie deviates from the real world comedy scene is when Robert De Niro's character, Murray Franklin, a talk show host, invites him on and basically just bullies him, invites him on ironically to make fun of him because of a viral video that had been posted of him. So that's where it takes the turn where it's like, all right, so in addition to this stuff, and obviously, the Joker had brought a gun and everything. Arthur had brought a gun to the show and everything. It ends up in one of the most tense scenes. I mean, I know I'd seen this movie before, Uncut Gems, but the tension between those two, between the moment at the end of Uncut Gems and then this movie with them sitting into when Joker starts giving his speech before he shoots Murray is really palpable. And that again, as to your point, is that this guy just keeps getting dumped on and then he snaps.
Yeah, I just that scene of him in the the comedy club where he's just like reading out of his notebook. I gotta say, like, the first time watching that scene, I don't know about you, but I've never been so uncomfortable watching a scene. Just like, and I think that was their goal, But like the second time watching the movie, I think I definitely was able to watch that scene more and understand like how the director and the movie producers were trying to make you feel. They were trying to make you feel kind of bad for this guy. He's standing in a nightclub, nobody's laughing at him, and I guess I think they did a really good job of that scene. But I know definitely second time watching that scene around, I definitely understood how largely it impacted the whole plot of the movie.
Right, and you just know by that point he's a broken man. I mean, everything that had gone on. I mean, how many people did he kill up to that point? It was at least 4 or 5, correct? And some of them not intentionally. Well, some of them were self-defense and such like that. But you can just tell at this point he's just a fully broken man. And getting into that climax, and once again, the score in this movie, some of the music throughout the movie is just fantastic. And it was really captivated in this scene. It just built up to a full thing, and thank God it was an R rating because it just really added to it. I mean, he murdered a television host. It'd be like someone murdering Ellen with the live crowd and everything. Oh
no, not Ellen.
No, not Ellen. Sorry, my bad. That's gonna make a lot of people upset. I don't know. One of those people. How about that? Maybe Jimmy Fallon. I heard he had some issues recently. Although I love Jimmy Fallon.
Oh yes, he did.
Yeah, I missed that though. I don't know what happened.
Some pictures surfaced of him playing. I guess he was trying to dress up and portray Chris Rock, and I guess it just took a turn for the worse, and everybody portrayed it as him trying to play blackface, or I don't understand the whole controversy behind that, but
yeah, blackface.
He came out with an apology, and I guess it was way back, like 2012 is when it happened, and he said, it never should have happened, but. There are those people that do get offended by that stuff, and we do live in a time where, people doing that is very controversial.
Yeah, I wonder what those people think about Tropic Thunder.
About what?
About Tropic Thunder? I haven't actually seen it, but I've seen scenes of it. It's where Robert Downey Jr. does blackface for a whole movie.
Really?
Yeah, look it up when we're done with this. It's a Vietnam War movie. I believe it's a comedy, and I believe it's partially like ironic in that sense. Like it's supposed to be funny. But yeah, it's got Robert Downey Jr. doing blackface and Ben Stiller. So and of course it was in 2008, so it's very different times because I think not the best scene, but the most like quoted scene is that meme that's you never go full R word.
Mm-hmm.
That's from that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I feel like it's one of those things. It's kind of like the Hangover, where it's like in the time you're like, this is great, and now 10, 12 years later you're like, this wasn't the best.
Maybe not our best output on that, but I mean, then again, like you said, in 2008 we weren't having those same problems that we were before, and I never really heard Robert Downey Jr. get criticized for that, No, and
I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is my boy. He's hanging up in my room on a poster. So obviously, maybe slightly biased. But yeah, I mean, it's the same year Iron Man came out. If you think about that, Marvel movies weren't even a thing yet, really. So that's how long ago it was. And also, Robert Downey Jr. has I think has gone through a lot more. If you look up his early life and stuff, then he could be getting canceled from a movie 15 years ago, 12 years ago. So that's all I'll say. Okay, so after
Robert,
what'd you say?
Said you gotta love Robert Downey Jr.
Oh yeah, great guy. Except I heard Doolittle was bad. That made me sad.
Yeah, that movie had no hope.
Yeah, really. I saw the trailer. I'm like, Robert, I love you, but I don't think this was the post Iron Man move.
No, absolutely not. But I wonder how big his check was for that. You know?
Oh yeah. Well, hopefully it wasn't a percentage of the box office, because then it wasn't that fat. Okay, so going back to the Joker after that fun diversion, was there too much Batman in this movie for you?
For me personally, not being a DC guy, I think there was just the right amount of Batman. I think people that aren't DC fans, like I wouldn't per se, you and I are DC fans, but because we're big Marvel guys, but I think we understand the story of Batman and understand, the background, but I think they added just enough to, link the two and show us how those two are related in a way without really overdoing the Batman.
Yeah. I think, outside of the continuity question, which I think we'll get to, because DC has never been good at making a universe anyway. Having his fate kind of tied to Thomas Wayne and Thomas Wayne possibly having him as a kid, which I think was really interesting. I just could have done without seeing Bruce's parents murdered again. Did we have to do that again? Did we really need that?
I think it just added to the story. I mean, what other scene are you talking about where Bruce's parents are murdered? In what movie?
I mean, I believe they show it in Batman Begins. I feel like in every single Batman movie, not every single one, obviously, but in every single iteration of the character, they show it. It's like, all right, we get it. His parents were killed. We all know it. I feel like Batman's one of those characters. It's like Batman, his parents were murdered, and so he became Batman. And I think it's most defensible in the Dark Knight trilogy because that kind of played with the whole arc of everything. I mean, that showed Batman being trained and everything as well, so that it made sense to go back there. But like Superman is from an alien planet that we have a element named after, and like Batman's parents were killed. Superman's from another planet. And the Hulk is green. Like everyone knows that. I feel like any person knows those facts. And I just don't know if I needed it at the end.
I think for somebody that, because I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends and some family that went and saw Joker just weren't in DC and didn't know the story of how Joker and Batman were connected, or how they knew Joker was Batman's villain, but they didn't know why. So I think adding that scene just made it more clear at the end, like this is how they're tied, like this is where it branches off from.
Yeah, that makes more sense. That does make sense now that I think about it. If you really, because a lot of people did see this movie that probably aren't familiar with it. There's one problem though, I feel like. So what would you gauge Arthur's age to be?
Oh God, that stumps me the entire movie. I kind of put him, his mom, I would just say late 30s. That's my best bet.
And then there's a little shot of a kid playing Bruce Wayne, right? Like there's a scene where Joker and Bruce Wayne actually meet. What'd you say? Bruce was 10?
Yeah.
That's tough. I know DC has really struggled, obviously, with Justice League, even though we're getting the Snyder cut. Interestingly enough, with trying to make a cohesive story and stuff like that. But like, did they really? Couldn't they have just cast like a teen where maybe you could have gotten away with the fact that he could have been 20, and then it just makes a little more sense. I mean, they could always come out and say the Joker was only 28 or something, which I think would be a stretch because I think Joaquin Phoenix is like 50. So it's already like they already were doing a really tough job trying to bring that age down. But like that gap is pretty substantial for the arch enemy and hero to have, right?
Yeah, because that would, because then if you think about the later movies, Batman's, a successful, adult living on his own. So that would put the Joker as what, like 50, 60, I guess? Because, that's not normal for a supervillain to be in his 60s or 50s and, still blowing up stuff and dressing up as a clown.
Right. So who knows? I mean, DC's already, they already replaced Ben Affleck as Batman, who I actually really liked as Batman. And now they're going with Robert Pattinson, I believe, right? In a couple of years, whenever. But that movie's been ripe with delays and such. So, and that was before the pandemic. So who knows what they'll probably just retcon it if they want to put the Joker in. But then again, if you're gonna get away with this, lazy storytelling, in my opinion, because I feel like this is super easy to fix. Batman has a collection of bad guys to where you don't really have to put Joker into any of them if you don't want to. So I don't know. That just me having the backstory. I'm like, this just doesn't make sense, and this was super easy. It doesn't even matter the main story, of course, but it bothered me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a little piece. It kind of I think it had everybody stumped and everybody confused. I think we were all expecting, Bruce to be, somewhat older because they did pick, a very young looking kid to portray Bruce, especially, playing like on a swing set or whatever it was in the front yard. I stopped playing on a swing set when I was probably, 8 or 9, 10, but that just shows, I don't know. DC, I think you're right. It is an easy fix, but I don't know how they would go about that.
It's got a retcon, so it's what they always do, right? So again, another victory in terms of DC for a unique story. Todd Phillips coming in as a director and just completely making this his movie along with Joaquin Phoenix. And outside of the larger Batman stuff, which we've already discussed, doesn't make any sense anyway. Over connecting the universe like Marvel always tries to do. Marvel always has 6 or 7 Easter eggs in each movie connecting it to the larger universe, and this is how this fits in. It's very nice. It's very easy to understand, getting a whole story arc of movies. And what's interesting is DC has found their most success, between Wonder Woman going back into, I want to say that one was it World War II or World War I? I don't remember which war it was, but it was a period piece. It went backwards.
I think it was World War One.
Okay, so like that, and then this movie obviously is a little further back. I want to say in the 90s, 80s, something like that. And it's just a completely unique movie except for the Batman stuff. So it's interesting to me that DC has had much more success with character-focused movies, even though this is technically in the extended universe, which is also a very long name. I don't know what's the universe extending from. Like I don't get it. But it's interesting that they've had a lot more success with these type of films. Rather than trying to build up a universe. So, what do you think about that?
I think with the success of this one, I don't see why they would stop. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be another Suicide Squad movie, correct?
Yes, yeah, that was green light. Let me pull up their movies right now, so we have an educated conversation about this rather than guessing. But yes, continue on. Suicide Squad, I like.
DC, I just don't know enough about their universe other than, I barely saw Suicide Squad. I didn't really pay attention during it, but for them to make a movie, I guess, as you would say, off the extended universe, or if that's what you want to call it, I think they did a really good job, especially since, Batman and Superman are their what I would say their biggest characters. I think going right off of Batman, they did a really good job, just because, they knew they were going to make money off of it. It's just, I think they did a much better job than anybody could have expected from them.
Yeah, I just think, they came out with Man of Steel in 2013, so that's already after the Avengers and such, and we just had the Dark Knight trilogy, which was a hit in all aspects of the word. It was a fantastic series of movies. The thing to me that I think they were just trying to play catch up, and they released the Batman v Superman 2016. They bring in Ben Affleck, who I think, once again, still I will defend Ben Affleck as Batman. I think it was a good character, but the problem is they brought him in as a 10-year veteran Batman. It's like, why are you wasting 10 years of Batman's prime when he is the most extensive rogue gallery in history? Like, I feel like they because I think the strength of what Marvel did is, if you were to go from Marvel versus DC, Marvel's strengths, they have their individual characters, obviously, but it's more in their teams, if you think about it. The Avengers are more famous than, before the movies, or more famous than any of the other people. The X-Men are more famous, other than maybe Wolverine, more than the collective whole in the comic books, and you get other teams as well in there. But then, you have the Justice League and you have the Teen Titans, and those are both kind of promoted as separate things because of Cartoon Network and TV shows. But really, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, those are names that people all know, no matter what, that are slight fans of this, and then they make up the Justice League and whatever else. So it was frustrating for me to see, because I think DC, like we've been seeing now, when they take movies that follow the characters, the flavor of the characters, I really enjoyed Aquaman. I thought that was a really funny thing, and Jason Momoa was a perfect casting for Aquaman. And when he's in Justice League already, like he gets put into Justice League before having his own movie. Same thing with Flash. It's like, why are we rushing for a team buildup here already when there's no team yet? So that's my whole thing. Then they wasted the death of Superman thing already, and it's just like, all right, what are you guys doing? Like, they just didn't have a plan. Marvel always feels like they have a plan, right? They're always building to something, and DC really struggled. And now I feel like their plan is just like, let's just make a bunch of movies of characters just to get them out there and make money, which I think have been way more successful than continuing with this movie. And then Birds of Prey as well, that came out earlier. I haven't seen it yet, but did pretty well, and stuff like that, and Wonder Woman. And it just, I don't know, I just feel like that should have been the plan from the get-go,
Yeah, you're right when you say that it felt like they were trying to play catch up, because, Avengers Endgame came out, the whole team, that finally ended, and I think they felt like, oh, this is our time to shine. This is our time to show, we have a team too. We have a unit. We can tie all these characters into one movie, and I think you're right. It did feel like they were trying to play catch up a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my whole thing. But maybe they're getting on the right track, and we'll get a super team up between Joker and Wonder Woman. Who knows?
Well, it's really hard to just keep throwing Joker in there, especially their biggest moneymaker. But I don't see why they wouldn't. That's a possibility, Zach. I'll say. Yeah,
who knows? I know they've had some success using some other characters. Harley Quinn seems like their moneymaker right now. Margot Robbie's been killing it in that role.
They got lucky with some good actors and actresses.
Yeah. Gal Gadot, Fast and Furious superstar first, as Wonder Woman. That was a good play as well.
I'm telling you, they're just getting lucky. It's because it's hard to beat the cast. The rival Marvel. It's hard to beat the cast of Avengers. It's pretty much impossible. I don't think they'll ever pass them, but you know, they have to do. They've got to do what they got to do to try and compete.
Yeah, I mean, the trinity of Marvel of Chris Hemsworth, Robert Downey Jr., and Chris Evans is just unbeatable. And when you're putting Scarlett Johansson, as the fourth billing on a movie poster with those three, and it took her, 20-something movies to finally get her own movie, which was unfortunately delayed because of this dumb pandemic. I don't mean the pandemic's dumb or the response. Just viruses suck, right? Just gotta make sure to throw that out there. Like you're right. Like those people are now completely identifiable with. Whenever I'm going to see Chris Evans in the movie, obviously because Chris Evans is still very young and he's putting out work. He was in that. What was it? Knives Out. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always going to think Captain America. So, I mean, you're right. It is hard to beat that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, especially DC, they have had some flops, if I do say so myself, because I don't know about you, I never really saw Shazam because the second I heard about it, I heard it was just not the best movie, and then you know they also had Green Lantern in the past, but some of their flops, it's just really hard to overcome that.
Yeah, and I felt like Shazam was just gonna be a kids movie. I know my brother liked it, but yeah. So
Just felt like a random character, especially because it was right after Aquaman, right?
Yes, yeah, and like I said, I really liked Aquaman. I thought that was a really good movie. So one thing I think that was really a strength of this movie that, you know, I don't want to say has been underplayed, obviously, because the movie won an Oscar for it, but something that really added to the overall character and really added to some of the most memorable scenes of the film was the score, the music behind everything, especially after, I think one of my favorite scenes, if not my favorite, is him dancing in the bathroom after the bus scene, where he gets attacked by three strangers and ends up killing each one of them, and then he just. I mean, if you and I had to defend ourselves against three guys and it didn't go our way or whatever, I would not be dancing in the bathroom after that occurred. And I just feel like the music throughout this film really encapsulated the character and everything that was going on, you know, during those scenes. What would you think of the score overall in this film?
I think the score in this movie was very good, and I think they did an awesome job portraying, like, the music lined up perfectly with what they were trying to make you feel within a certain scene. Because, you know, that elegant music playing while he's, you know, dancing in the bathroom after killing three guys, that's just not a normal thing to do, you know, after killing three people, go dance in a public bathroom. But I think they just wanted you to think, you know, he thinks that what he did was okay, and what he did, he's like at peace with, especially in that scene where he's dancing.
Right, especially because that scene comes earlier on in the film, you know, that it's not anywhere near the climax or anything like that. And then by the end of the movie, with the scene again when when he shoots the television host, that score also there kind of shows the shifting of the whole mindset and such, and especially when, you know, at the end of the movie they're out and it's mob rule outside in Gotham. I think it really forms a great backdrop to all of that and what's happened with that. How'd you feel about Joker being kind of showed in the movie as like the leader of a societal, I don't say revolution, but I guess that is the word for it, because there's a giant mob at the end, marching on the streets on the mayor and stuff like that. How'd you feel about Joker being kind of, it's not a martyr because he's still alive at the end of the film, but he ends up getting taken into jail and such. How'd you feel about that?
I think it's like they're just trying to portray him as like he thinks that what he did is okay, you know, like in the movie they're trying to make it seem as if I'm not mistaken, like the rich have like all the power, I guess. So it was like he was kind of a leader of like the I don't know, the lower class in Gotham, because from what I remember, it's just like, you know, it was like what was his name? Oh my god, I'm shooting a blank.
Thomas Wayne?
Yeah, Thomas Wayne was, saying all this stuff, and then he finally killed those three people, and everybody started wearing clown masks, and everywhere he went, he saw somebody in a clown mask, and I think it was just a big part in him having self validation, and him feeling like what he's doing is okay, and it kind of added to him just to want to like keep going and keep killing people, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I think it definitely plays like that. Part of me wondered if it was another type of illusion in a way. They didn't really. This one was much less clear, but just in the way, I don't know. I would find that society, celebrating the killing of 3 college kids and stuff like that, even if they were from, rich families, then that becomes a movement. I mean, that was a little tough for me to stomach.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's just not. It's just not normal for that to be a thing, especially here in our time now. If somebody killed 3 college students on a train and then just went on on a killing spree, but in the end, it was just it's a movie about the psychological mind of the Joker, a villain. So I mean, yeah, it was tough to watch him kill 3 college students on a train, but in the end, it had to do with playing into the Joker's mindset.
Right. What's that? What's that famous quote? Every villain is the hero of their own story, or something like that.
Yep, exactly.
Probably said by Joseph Stalin or something like that.
Stop.
I'm gonna look up who actually said that. I'm curious. Couple other things I want to touch on. So you mentioned that it is in your top 10 movies of all time. There was some movement for this to get Best Picture. It did not. Parasite did. Where did you stand on that going into the Oscars? And I mean, we've hit Uncut Gems, which wasn't nominated for anything. Very sad. Adam Sandler deserves something at least for that performance. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, we've done Parasite. Where do you see this movie among those type of movies?
The Joker had its competitors. There was a lot of good movies I feel like that came out right around the time the Joker did. But compared to Parasite, I had Joker as Best Picture.
Wow.
I didn't think. I thought Parasite was very, very good. I think it deserved an award, but giving a foreign film like that Best Picture over Joker, I have Joker in, I think, my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, I don't know if I can go there with Best Picture. I think I still stand by that in terms of just pure movie. Parasite is fantastic and completely deserving. And if you're talking about the subtitles as a problem, then you just need to get better glasses. Because it was, I know we watched that together, right? You came over for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, it was a fantastic movie. So I don't know, maybe it's just because I've had it drilled in my head as a comic book and Marvel fan that the a lot of the comic book movies aren't great. And even though, I've said this isn't necessarily a comic book film, part of that maybe is what's holding me back. But I think it was interesting, that it was at least nominated for that and a bunch of other things. And I think Joaquin getting Best Actor was a definite. I mean, if that didn't happen, it would have been shocking. I mean, he really, really sold out for this. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I remember reading some stuff about him in this role. I heard, they couldn't do reshoots because of the amount of weight that he had lost to play the Joker.
Yeah, he cut weight like he was a UFC fighter. Literally, if you watch the film, you see how skinny he is.
Yeah, it just did not look normal, which, I mean, that's what they were going for. But for him to, he really did. It very well deserved that award.
The the quote, "The every villain is a hero in his own mind." Tom Hiddleston as Loki makes a lot of sense.
Really?
Yeah, I could have swore it was like a prophetic thing from the past, but it's not.
I mean, it pretty much is. Loki's kind of a legend.
That's true. He is. Can't wait for his TV series coming out soon. On Disney Plus.
Oh God.
But yeah,
we'll see how that goes.
I'm excited for it. I'm excited for everything. For just right now through the quarantine, I'm excited for everything that's going to come out. The NHL, Marvel, NBA. I don't care how weird it is. Like let's get it going. I'm ready.
Have you? I forget. You're a big Star Wars guy too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you heard they confirmed the Obi-Wan. Ewan McGregor's going to have his own thing.
Well, look. Not only am I a big Star Wars fan, but Obi-Wan Kenobi's my favorite character.
Perfect. You got a little bit more to look forward to now.
No, I'm hyped. I just hope they don't. There's a part of the thing where if Obi-Wan was never to come back in any capacity, I'd be satisfied. Just because there's been so much, and it's been a great ride. So I just hope they don't mess it up. That's always the one thing, right? When you have an awesome character and then you hear they're coming back, and you're just like, and especially with Star Wars, with the power transferring from Lucasfilm to Disney recently, they not everything they've done has been a hit. So
yeah, I'll be surprised, and what I'm most excited for is the reaction from the Star Wars community, because Obi-Wan is like a character that I think they wanted more information on, but they were okay with leaving him alone, and they wanted more, but they were also okay with not ruining that character.
Right. So we'll see. When's that delayed to? Sometime in 2021. They have so many problems in Disney with Star Wars. They've been struggling.
Yeah, Disney's a wreck right now.
Who knows? But yeah, I'm excited for that. So I know you mentioned that you have already watched this film twice, maybe more. I don't know. So in your experience of doing that, is the movie rewatchable, do you think?
100%. 100%. I mean, I'm a little biased, like I said, this is in my top 5 favorite movies, and I wouldn't put it there unless it was rewatchable. But I think a movie like this, and like I was saying earlier in the podcast, it's just so different from anything. I feel like, even outside of DC, I think it's different than any other movie anybody's ever seen.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I feel like, too, for me, kind of like Uncut Gems is kind of like this as well. I feel like going through, you know how it's all going to end, but it doesn't necessarily take away from the film, because going through now, you see more points of like, oh, this led up to this moment, and this led up to this, and then, this kind of factor I missed in the original film because I was just so worried about what was going to happen next. I think you mentioned it earlier on here. You said that you really got a sense for why the director wanted you to see this in that way. Could you dive in a little more on that?
I think Todd Phillip, the director, this is his first serious movie, and I think he did such a good job with just bringing to light mental illness. And like I was saying, it's been such a big thing recently, and I think he did a phenomenal job on just showing how trying to relate real life problems to a supervillain in a comic book universe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm looking at his stuff now. This is hilarious. Todd Phillips was a director and producer for the Hangover trilogy.
Yeah. Huge thing.
And now he went from he wrote on Borat.
On Borat?
Yes, and produced Project X. Talk about a switch. Oh my goodness. So he has all that. Then he was a director, writer, producer for War Dogs. Produced A Star Is Born 2 years ago, and then directed, wrote, and produced Joker. Man, what a well-rounded director! Holy cow!
Honestly, I mean, War Dogs is in my top 10 too. So
I haven't seen it.
Oh, really? That's a movie. That's a movie you have to see.
Maybe I'll get to it. Then we can do another one of these on it. Who knows? Who knows what the fans want?
It's just different to see Jonah Hill play a serious character.
Jonah Hill has some range.
He is probably the most diverse actor I've ever seen in my life. The dude's rap sheet is insane. He's got it all, from Moneyball to The Wolf of Wall Street to 21 Jump Street to War Dogs. Like he can do it all.
Superbad.
Oh, Superbad, the classic.
Yeah, he really does. And like whenever him and kind of Seth Rogen are the same way. Whenever they pop up in a movie, I'm like, oh, here they are. Like they're never overwhelming in their 2-minute cameo or whatever. Like they're just there. They're having a good time. You know, they collected a couple G's to do that, and that's that. And they go on their way throughout the movie.
And nobody is ever disappointed.
Exactly. No, I love that. But yeah. Any other thoughts regarding Joker? If you haven't seen it by now, it came out last November. I'm not sure what streaming it's on right now, but I definitely think you gotta check it out. It's just a good film overall.
Like I said, top 5 movie. I got to put it in there. I think they just put it on Hulu, but I could be incorrect because I was scrolling through Hulu the other day, and I was with a couple of friends, and I was like, we were all just messing around trying to pick out a movie, and they were like, "Oh, Joker," and I was like, "Guys, this is like a really serious movie. And if we're gonna watch this, I'm gonna have to sit here and actually watch because I'm like too into it." And they were like, "All right, fine, we'll watch." And then we just ended up watching something else. But yeah. I'm pretty sure it's on Hulu.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna have to not now on this podcast. We're hitting a long time here, but we're gonna have to do a top 5 sometime. You mentioned the top 5. I'm curious. Maybe off air, and then we could do it later on the pod.
My top 5 is definitely unique, and I think it has a very wide range of movies on there.
I think that's the perfect tease for a later show, right? I mean, subscribe. Make sure you get it when it comes out.
That's what I'm thinking. Everybody's got to hear my top 5, especially if I've got Joker in there.
That's true. Well, Buddy, thank you for coming on. This is a lot of fun. We'll definitely do it again soon. So great debut episode.
Absolutely.